from KBIA and the Reynolds Journalism Institute. On air and online, this is Intersection.
Hello and welcome to Intersection, where people and ideas meet online and on KBIA. I'm Ryan Famuliner. Last week, Americans across the country took time to celebrate veterans and their contributions to the nation. Here in Columbia, the festivities included a Veterans Day parade that made its way down 8th Street, ending at the Boone County Courthouse. To mark the occasion, each day since Veterans Day, KBIA has been airing a variety of personal interviews with soldiers during Morning Edition. The series, which was done in partnership with Storycorps Military Voices Initiative and the MU Extension Community Arts Project, will continue through Wednesday. Today on Intersection, we'll listen to a few of those interviews and try to get a better understanding of what it's like to be a veteran returning home and about military life in general. Joining me in studio to explain the veteran experience, Eugene O'Loughlin works for the Missouri Veterans Commission as the Veterans Service Supervisor for Boone County. Eugene, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
And Shawn Martin is the acting team leader of the Columbia Vet Center. Shawn, thanks for being here.
Thank you, too.
And for you and our audience, are you a veteran? What was your experience returning home from deployment? Share your thoughts. Give us a call at 573-882-8925 or email intersection@kbia.org. You could also tweet intersect KBIA. So to start, we wanted to go ahead and play one of those audio pieces I mentioned there in the intro. Shawn Lee is a former Army infantryman who lives in Columbia. He served in both the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Lee spoke to Daniel Hartman, his friend and fellow veteran, about why he enlisted and about the challenges he faced coming home.
Coming back, there's just no way to talk to people about what you saw. I saw really horrible things in Iraq. I mean, there are things that you can't talk about. How do you describe to someone in the middle of a conversation, well, right now, while you're talking, I'm kind of seeing this dead guy I saw and his face charred off. Or, you can't understand the kind of horror that you feel when you think, I am about to die, I'm about to burn alive. I mean, trying to connect with people when I came home was just hard. My daughter had no idea who I was. I was distanced from my wife, and the only friends that I had were the ones that I'd been overseas with, and they really were the only ones that understood me. So there was a huge distance between me and the rest of society that I could not bridge the gap because I had nothing I could talk about with them, Yeah. Going to Afghanistan, I felt like I was going home. I'm ostracized. I started a letter writing campaign to the soldiers overseas with a very prominent group in my school. And the girls made a rule that said no last names when writing to these soldiers. Okay, no Facebook information, no email information, just your front name. We don't want them to come back and stalk you with the PTSD.
I had no idea that happened.
Yeah. And I went to the president of the group. I said, this is bullshit. You're leaders in this community, and your friends have 1,800 friends on Facebook, but you can't write a simple letter of "Hi, how you doing" to a soldier.
Yeah.
But you're saying I can only say thank you and not give you my information because I'm afraid you'll come back and stalk me. It just illustrates what a misunderstanding our nation has of the conflict and of the people fighting it, and how we have not adequately explained to the American people what is going on.
That was veteran Shawn Lee, who lives in Columbia, speaking to Daniel Hartman about his time in the military. Casey Morrell produced that story for KBIA. A lot to unpack there in that story there. But what are some of the things you both hear from veterans that you're working with, and some of the difficulties they're facing, I guess, socially? We heard a lot about that, trying to interact with people here back home. Eugene?
I think one of the first things that popped out when he was speaking was the fact that it's hard for them to make a connection with the people that are here back home because they can't understand what the soldiers have gone through. And I don't think that is specific to him. I think most of the soldiers are actually going through something like that. Mm-hmm. When you're in the military, especially when you're in combat, which I was never in combat, But you are taught in the military to place your life into that other person's hands, and they will place their life in your hands. When you get out into the civilian population, there is nothing like that. Mm-hmm. There's nothing. You know, you don't ever have to have that kind of level of commitment with another person. And that's why I think we see a lot of failed marriages, failed family systems, as well as people that have trouble finding and keeping jobs, because they expect, soldiers that are returning are expecting to find that kind of a level of relationship, and it's just not out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are some of the things, you both work with veterans that are coming back, what are some of the things you can try to do to see when that's going to happen, if that makes sense, to try to figure out what veterans might be at risk at some of these things, or is it really everyone coming back? Or, is there a way to pinpoint it aside from them telling you, I've got this is a difficult thing happening? Is it going to have to be on the veteran side talking to you, or what else are you looking for, I guess, as a professional working with somebody like this?
Well, the military, the DOD, Department of Defense, they have what they call a post-deployment health reassessment. And so they do a screening with veterans that come back from combat. And when they do come back from combat, if they screen that they might need help, then they usually get referred to facilities for help and assistance. And so a lot of times we see people from PDHRAs that we go to as well, yellow ribbon events, and we'll talk to the veterans and share with the veterans, hey, if they want to use our resources, then by all means, we're there for them. For this vet, Shawn Lee, I'm not sure if he used the Veterans Affairs or not, but, the Vet Center, we're a small program of the Veterans Affairs Office, and we have a lot of veterans that have been, that share the same experiences that he shared, and they find camaraderie with their veterans when they go to support groups. And so they find that they can trust and rely on one another. But they do have, a lot of veterans share the same experience with social isolation, lack of fitting in, to put it mildly. And also that there's trust issues, sometimes irritability, anger. And so groups, particularly peer counseling groups, with veterans who've been in the same shared experience that they've been in, tend to be very helpful.
Mm-hmm. I think the one commonality with all of this information is the fact that it's kind of up to the veteran to reach out for that kind of levels of support. The alternative is, in the event something serious goes wrong and the police get involved or something, then, okay, well, now we've got mandated type solutions for it. But unfortunately, the way the system is set up, the veteran has to reach out for it. Mm-hmm. They're given that information. They're given the information about the vet centers, about the fact that there's counseling at the VA, that they should go and see a veteran service officer. But all of that is they have to go and seek the assistance.
Is that difficult to get them to do that? I mean, not that it's your goal to get them to do something they don't want to do, but is that a barrier for some
without
veterans?
a doubt. I mean, for some veterans, when they're looking at specific benefits such as going back to school, they know what they're doing, their focus, they want to do them. They want to go ahead and do that. Or if they want to buy a house and they want to use the home loan guarantee. Okay, those are benefits that they're aware of, that they don't have to admit that something's wrong. Mm-hmm. When it comes to PTSD or a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, or even any type of disability, they have to say, yeah, there's something wrong and I need help with this. Meanwhile, for the past 3 years or 4 years or however long they were actually serving, they were taught that they can't admit any type of weakness, that they cannot admit any type of, problem is going on. They have to just, it's that we need to take that hill, and we're going to take that hill no matter what type of mentality.
There's several times we see other vets bring in vets. It's usually, a lot of times, it's veterans come into our facility because a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend or another combat buddy says you really need help. And so they come in based on kind of edge pushed in by somebody else. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of acknowledge it, particularly if they've been doing it for a long time. They kind of acknowledge there's a struggle, but they were trying to, veterans are very proudful, and they have a lot of pride. And so a lot of times they try to deal with it on their own and try to overcome it on their own. And it's when somebody else kind of says, you really need more help than what you're doing right now. And then they come in or call in.
I'm going to take a moment to remind our audience that this is Intersection, a program of KBIA and the Reynolds Journalism Institute. I'm Ryan Famuliner, and today we're talking about the military experience and the challenges that military members face as they return home. We're also playing portions of personal interviews with area military members done in partnership with Storycorps Military Voices Initiative and the MU Extension Community Arts Project. Joining me in studio to explain the veteran experience, Eugene O'Loughlin works for the Missouri Veterans Commission as the Veterans Service Supervisor for Boone County, and Shawn Martin is the acting team leader of the Columbia Vet Center. We'd also love to hear from you and our audience. If you're a veteran, what do you most value about your active duty experience? What skills did you learn? Share your thoughts. Give us a call at 573-882-8925 or email intersection@kbia.org. You could also tweet Intersect KBIA. We'd like to remind you that you can watch Intersection as streaming video online during our live conversations every Monday afternoon at 2 at kbia.org. You can watch that video and join our online chat by going to kbia.org and scrolling down to the link for Intersection. Again, that's Mondays at 2 online at kbia.org. On the other side of that, we've talked a little bit about the veterans' role in this situation of trying to get into this, society interaction levels where they want to be at in a healthy way. But what about civilians? What should they know about this challenge that veterans are chasing when they come back, and what can civilians do to try to ease that?
That's a rough one. I don't know.
We partner with the Workforce Center. We have, Eugene, we have one of your staff members in the Columbia Vet Center, and he does an excellent job, by the way. But then we also have the Workforce Center, and the Workforce Center is another state agency that I think it might receive some federal funds. But, my understanding, when we bring the Workforce Center involved in it, they help veterans find employment opportunities. But that's one part of their program. But another part of their program is they have employees that work with veterans to try to get them to hire more veterans. And so a lot of times when we have veterans that are seeking employment assistance, we connect them to the Workforce Center just so that they can get all the resources they're eligible for. And we usually have a pretty good satisfaction rate with the Workforce Center.
Sure. And that's a big deal, right? Normalizing back to society, having a job is going to be a big part of that. But what are some of the challenges there, Eugene? Is for veterans and trying to find their way back into the workforce?
I don't think it's limited to just veterans right now.
Yeah,
I think civilians as well, are having such a hard time finding job opportunity, good job opportunities. Along the same lines as the Career Center or the workforce development, there's also a workforce gentleman who works at the Veterans Hospital. And his job is actually to go out to different community businesses and say, hey, hire my veterans. I got a couple of guys that may fit the job requirements here, and maybe you can work with them. So to get back to your question from a little earlier about what can civilians do, civilians as a person, I think you want to just try to be a little bit more understanding about what we think the veterans are going through over there. It's not all,
they can't necessarily understand, right?
No, and it's not what you see in TV or the movies. They glorify everything, but for people to just understand that these veterans have been through things that they don't understand, and don't attempt to believe that what they went through just because you've seen a couple of Rambo movies. That doesn't really cut it. And then for employers, because that is, it's definitely a major obstacle that these guys that are coming back today are having trouble with is obtaining and maintaining employment that provides for their family. And it takes a community. I love that saying. But it's very true. You need to work. Everybody needs to kind of work together in order to solve that problem.
Sure.
One thing we do at the Columbia Vet Center also is if a veteran who's come back from combat struggling with his employment situation, he can come into counseling just to kind of try to figure out how to deal with that stress. This isn't an uncommon issue, from Vietnam down, or probably well before that, that veterans struggled with employment when they came back because there's probably a multitude of issues in dealing with stresses and in addition to dealing with stressors, there's also in the military there was a meaning. It was fighting for the country, and they had a real strong purpose, a real strong meaning. And then they come back here and they look at their job and the meaning's absent. So
Right.
Yeah. So what about that in workplace environment? I mean, what can employers, I guess, do too to make that something that's an easier fit, I guess? I mean, or I guess another way, what are some of the other challenges there aside from just that mission? I mean, it's a different structure and everything too, right?
Oh, it is. It's different accountability levels. There's different abilities. There's different levels of, how people will be responsible and stuff. And in the military, there was always that accountability of everybody had a supervisor that you could go to if you had a problem, and there was always a solution at the end of the tunnel. In civilian life, you don't tend to see a lot of that either. If you have a complaint about a specific problem or something, nobody really cares. And I think a little bit of that in the business side of it is kind of similar where, well, I'm paying you to do a job. Why should I have to coddle you and make sure that you're doing okay and that you're happy in your job too? Society today in the United States doesn't really care too much.
Another thing that goes hand in hand with this employment aspect is education, and that's especially important, I'd say, here where we're talking in Columbia, on the campus of the University of Missouri. What are some of the challenges that veterans are facing as they come to college, as many of them are, right, especially from Iraq and Afghanistan?
My own personal opinion is I don't think that a lot of them are ready for sitting in a classroom with 18 to 22-year-olds and who don't really have an understanding of what the real world is like. And when those veterans coming back from Iraq or Afghanistan are sitting in a class and they're all doing a discussion on something, and there's a bunch of less mature students in the classroom that kind of haven't had it as rough as some of the veterans. I think the veterans kind of get a little angry about some of that, and
so they're just not ready for that new peer group, I guess, right?
No.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they struggle with they have anxiety, stressors. A lot of veterans do not like to be in crowded situations. Obviously, universities can be very crowded. Parking, just coming here, it was crowded. And I have a big old long van, so I had to find a good parking spot. But the reality is there's struggles that they have, and I've seen some students, some vet students do very well, and I've seen some vet students have struggles. And I think the most important thing that a veteran going to college can do is get connected to a veterans group. Usually they're veterans who've all been in the same shared situation. They get with that group, and they can also get connected to different agencies on campus. There's the ADA offices. There's the Director of Personnel Life, stuff like that. One of the things, I'm the acting team leader here in Columbia. I am from Manhattan, Kansas, and in Manhattan, Kansas, we do have a strong network connection to help veterans who are struggling. We even will help professors and train professors at Kansas State University. My hope is we can duplicate that here, and we can go to, I think there's 2 colleges, Columbia and the University of Missouri. Mm-hmm. And my hope is that we can do some of that here with the training and help students out who are in college who are struggling.
Eugene,
the University of Missouri actually has a vet center that their veterans group is over.
Great.
Last I heard, it's over 350 strong.
Great.
And they're very good. And actually, when I come across education questions, benefits questions that I can't answer, I refer them to the MU Vet Center. And it's funny because I'll refer people that are going to Moberly Area Community College or Columbia College or wherever it may be, and I tell them just tell them I sent you over there to answer your questions. And they're wonderful over here.
And this may be obvious to you too, but why is that camaraderie and that sense of place, I guess, so important, especially for these students, these veterans? to have a place like that and have a group of people that understand where you're from?
I think it's a strong sense of connection. They feel connected.
Yeah.
They're not going to the university alone by themselves. They have friends, they have buddies that they're connected to. And the most important part is, if they do get stressed or triggered, they may talk to their friend more than they talk to anyone else. And so, they try to help out each other. In Kansas, in Kansas State University, they do have a vet center on Kansas campus too, on the Kansas State campus, and we are connected to them. And we're going to look at trying to send out a counselor there to meet veterans on campus. I'd like to see us do that here.
Yeah. We have service officers. The Missouri Veterans Commission has 47 service officers in the state, and several of them actually go to some of the major campuses around. The biggest reason why we don't go to like Mizzou or Columbia is the strength of the vet center over here. Not the VA vet center, but
right.
This is the MU.
You're talking about the MU vet center.
It's a veterans group.
Sure.
Part of the admissions department here.
And I've seen it at Kansas State where they didn't have a vet center group, and then I saw it when they formed one, and the students responded a lot better that way.
Well, it's very difficult for a veteran coming back from Iraq or Afghanistan who has seen combat, to make that connection with other people, and yet if they go to school and they find that there's already a small group of people, even if it is, 300 people strong, that's still a relatively small group when you're talking there are, 30,000 students that go to Mizzou.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice for them to make that association with those other people.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about whether professors are in the right place where they need to be? Yeah.
There are veteran professors that are also part of the vet center as well.
But what about just your common professor? Do you think that have you heard whether they're equipped to handle some of the issues that veterans are coming with, or just the...
I do not know. I have not heard.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, this is a good time to remind our listeners very quickly this is Intersection, a program of KBIA and the Reynolds Journalism Institute. I'm Ryan Famuliner, and today we're talking about the military experience and the challenges that military members face as they return home. We're also playing portions of personal interviews with area military members done in partnership with Storycorps Military Voices Initiative and the MU Extension Community Arts Project. Joining me in studio to explain the veteran experience, Eugene O'Loughlin works for the Missouri Veterans Commission as the Veteran Service Supervisor for Boone County, and Shawn Martin is the acting team leader of the Columbia Vet Center. We'd also love to hear from you in our audience. Are there any popular misconceptions about veterans that you know of? Share your thoughts. Give us a call at 573-882-8925 or email intersection@kbia.org. You could also tweet intersect_KBIA. Now we're going to go ahead and play another one of those pieces we've been airing on KBIA's special series of Military Voices. After 12 years of service in the U.S. Navy and military, Kendale Carter received a medical discharge for his PTSD symptoms. When he arrived home, he struggled with his condition while also coping with the death of his younger brother, who died of a brain tumor, and the separation from his first wife. Kendale came to Storycorps with longtime family friend Jenny Grieve to talk about his struggles and what it took for him to persevere.
What was the most difficult thing to adjust to after coming home?
Adjusting back to marriage life would probably be my hardest one, which in turn turned into a divorce. You spend 10 months in a country that's nothing like the United States and deal with rocket attacks sometimes on a daily basis, and then you come back and the house that you left has molded into a new home where they've handled everything on their own without you. It took a toll on both sides as far as realizing it's just going to take time. And I think my hardest adjustment was realizing that I maybe needed to kind of pump the brakes and realize that everything's not going to just go right back to the way it was.
When was your final separation from the military?
January of this year, of 2013.
Can you tell me a little bit about why you separated?
It was a medical separation due to my PTSD and anxiety and I guess fears of being around my weapon and things like that. I was closed off for a while, and so I really didn't let people in to kind of help me.
I had tried to break the wall. Once the wall was broken down, it was a little bit easier.
Like I said, you could relate to me. You knew some of the some of the pains that I was going through, and people need to have a little bit more understanding and patience to understand what combat-related PTSD really means.
That was Navy veteran Kendale Carter, who lives in Columbia, and his friend Jenny Greaves talking about Kendale's experiences and hardships during and after his military career. That story was produced by Andrew Yost for KBIA. On that issue about PTSD and the public's perceptions of it, what does the public not know about PTSD right now, and what are they understanding incorrectly, I guess?
You know, I don't know if I actually look at it from that angle. What I look at it is when a veteran comes into our facility, what we try to do is help them manage one symptom at a time. Mm-hmm. And PTSD is about symptoms. There's 17 symptoms that we look at that falls into 3 clusters, if you want to say. And out of those 17 symptoms, we just ask, can we help ease one symptom at a time? And I think the population at large thinks if somebody has PTSD, they may have PTSD for life. But when we reduce a symptom at a time and they manage their symptoms, the experiences are going to be there. It's how they manage the symptoms. We find a lot of veterans can manage those symptoms a lot better and can reduce the pain that they're going through just by learning new coping strategies and coping skills.
Yeah, and that was what we heard in that first piece, Sean Lee, earlier in the show, too. We heard him talking about people thinking, well, that person is going to have PTSD when they come back, and we can't let people know who you are because that might, sure. Is that that kind of stigma, I guess, comes along with it too in some ways. Yeah.
Well, if you just heard that the gentleman just talking right now, his good friend who related to him well helped break the wall down, mm-hmm. and so he was able to share and become more open and more vulnerable with that person. If again, that does help a vet. Any strong support base has been proven to be beneficial mm-hmm. for a vet overcoming PTSD symptoms. And that's a great case example where that works. And that's what we try to do at the vet center as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that there's a misconception, too, with PTSD that it's not always caused by combat. I mean, you can get PTSD from what you consider to be a life-threatening situation. It's just that with the military right now, the veterans are having to go and serve for, if you're active duty, you could be over there for 3 or 4 or 5 tours. And that's a lot of stress to undergo. These people are going 100 miles an hour. Their adrenaline level is pumping 24 hours a day for 12 months, 15 months, 18 months at a time. And then they come home, and it's expected to just shut off. And that's impossible. We have back here in the United States, we have a flight or fight type of mentality, but they're living that 24 hours a day, and so it's hard to shut that off. And I think that's one of the reasons why they have so much anxiety mm-hmm. when they come back, is because they can't just turn that off.
Sure. We have to take a quick break. This is Intersection, a program of KBIA and the Reynolds Journalism Institute. Today, we're talking about the military experience and the challenges military members face as they return home. Joining me in studio to explain the veteran experience are Eugene O'Loughlin, who works for the Missouri Veterans Commission as the Veteran Service Supervisor for Boone County, and Shawn Martin, who's the acting team leader of the Columbia Vet Center. I'm Ryan Famuliner. We'll be right back after a short break.